What's that guy's name again? I was 17 and in maths class when the kid next to me asked me, "Have you ever watched Bleach before?" I remember internally rolling my eyes at him. Not really my thing, no. And upon my response, I saw his deflated look. So I gave him, some sort of an empty promise. I'll get into it. I had many prejudices about this anime. Just another shonen piece of junk made for a bunch of sweaty teen boys, with full focus on the male MC who just goes through the same old stretched out narrative. And I never really bothered after that. I was microdosing Femcell media at the time, watching Nana, Tumblr posts, Lana Del Rey. I had Amy Dunn's cool girl monologue linked to my Instagram bio. You get the point. A self-acclaimed cool girl thinking of myself as above watching something like Bleach, because it would have totally ruined the perfectly curated image I had built brick by brick in high school. Years went by, I changed a lot changed around me, and here I find myself getting emotional thinking about this anime. Watching it was just a genuine personal roller coaster, and I'm really glad I had someone who was there at every loop and twirl listening to me scream. So I finally sat down sometime in 2024 and watched the first episode of Bleach. I wasn't mesmerized right off the bat. Sure, a lot happened within the first few episodes, but it doesn't demand your heart immediately. I have, however, definitely let go of all preconceived ideas I had about this anime, and I found it to be incredibly comforting to watch. After the first few episodes, I then got caught in the bear trap that is Kubo's writing, and I honestly cannot find a word in my vocabulary to describe it other than titties. I don't know, bonkers, insane. Really, my whole life I've been, chasing that high you get when you catch a good piece of fan fiction, stay up on a school night on Wattpad until 3 a.m. reading some good literature. I'm just kidding. Never would I have bet my shiniest penny that I would catch that high from watching a 2D little cartoon over a bunch of pixels and voice acting. The person who initially introduced me to Bleach kept teasing that in this anime, everything ties together, and I never fully understood that until I myself sobbed like a baby whenever these full circle moments presented themselves to me. Furthermore, Kubo has a way to grip one by their neck and have them fall in love with almost any character. One thing about Bleach is there is always a reason for every action, every word spoken by every character. Speaking of characters, the character design is absolutely spanking. From the voice actors down to hair color, personality, even a small detail such as a hairpin, everything is just carefully glued together. Kintsugi, golden glue, the fragile plates. Bleach is just truly the gift that does not stop giving. Another one of the many reasons why I admire this anime so much is because it allows for videos such as this one. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just babbling up at this point. But there are so many opportunities for people to experience tying the red string and ending up with a crowded bulletin board filled with the stories of each individual character. Their stories and philosophies aren't revealed to you in this complex, cryptic way, but in a way that's human. It's weird to say that about a 2D little cartoon, but it's the closest explanation I have. Words and feelings and emotions, whatever, it's not revealed to you in this overly fancy way. It's simple, sometimes childish, just organic. I guess that's another reason why I admire Bleach so much. It's not overcomplicated, and it still maintains mystery and puzzles in its own way. Mystery and surprise, I believe, is also one of Bleach's most prime aspects regarding storytelling. I remember getting so mad at this very reason because I felt like an absolute fool for falling for one of Kubo's many traps yet again. Honorable mention, but this anime is as old as I am. So, cool. I started watching Bleach at a very weird time in my life. I was somewhat transitioning from being a teenaged adult into facing reality. I cannot be more thankful to have started it at that time. I was old enough to understand the deeper meanings behind actions, words, scenes, yet young enough to still be hopeful, naive, impressionable by this story. When Ichigo was faced with a hollow for the first time alongside Rukia, I remember him saying it was his fault that that girl was attacked and that the hollow was after Karin and Yuzu, and he just ran straight to the hollow even though Rukia was right there. He had no idea what that thing was capable of. This, alongside Ichigo, bringing the local child spirit flowers, and just immediately gave me an idea of Ichigo's character and his motivation. Watching him pick up the sword and powers from Rukia for the first time didn't feel heroic. I didn't get goosebumps. It wasn't a moment. It just felt heavy. Sure, he chose to pick up that sword, but it did feel like this responsibility was just pushed into his hands. Like growing up too fast. Like these powers had existed for years before him, chose him, and he just had to run with it. He's no longer a teenaged boy who can see spirits. Things are no longer simple. Though this is an anime with supernatural elements, it was the one that hit home the most. I almost want to say this moment captured entering adulthood and learning how to protect others while you're learning how to protect and know yourself. That was my first thought watching the scene. Anyways, something similar to that. But obviously its meaning changed every time I rewatched the scene at a different time in life, which makes Bleach so intoxicating. I love how Bleach is so subjective without losing the plot. I imagine a lot of viewers experiencing that very scene differently. Even though we all know what's really happening, then came Soul Society. Everything shifted. The world is ancient. We're no longer faced with monsters and sick fights, but systems and morals, and you're wondering whether or not the 13 Court squad members are good guys or bad guys. I remember conspiring against Gin when he faced Ichigo for the first time, being fooled by Aizen. I am no better than Hinamori. I would have been gutted too. I had a theory that Rukia would fall in love with Aizen. Don't ask, I don't know. And then that she could have been lesbian. I have this list of notes and theories I made when I started watching. And according to these notes, Yoruichi would have also been lesbian. Then I theorized that Rukia would fall in love with a villain, and then she would have fell in love with Shinsui. Crazy stuff. Anyways, watching Ichigo and his buddies show up to the Soul Society was like watching just a bunch of kids, babies, challenge fate itself. We see these characters in several fights and wonder whether or not they will actually survive or not. That uncertainty made watching Bleach so addictive for me. I remember breaking out in a cold sweat when I watched Chad step up to Shinsui, and I had absolutely no faith in the dude at all. They were, after all, just a bunch of high schoolers challenging Soul Reapers with centuries worth of wisdom and experience. And this just made the characters unforgettable. You start finding small pieces of yourself within every character. And even though they were all elite, seasoned Soul Reapers too, every moment felt so human. The antagonists especially. Watching the Espada, I remember feeling empathetic towards each of them, except this guy. But especially knowing what they all represented. Just keep fighting in order to just stay alive. Each of them had their own reason for fighting, and we didn't get the opportunity to disagree with them from the get-go just because they are the antagonists. And I think that's beautiful. That's pretty cool. Sometimes you're kind of supposed to support the good guy, root for them. But there were so many points where I just couldn't decide who I was hoping to see get out at the top. But what truly hooked me wasn't the action or the sick animation, even though it's insane. It was, these emotions that crept up on me when I wasn't paying attention. It started out as a comfort show, maybe a bit of obligation. Someone else, had me revisit the idea of watching this anime, and it ended with essays and school assignments inspired by the Espada, and it's insane. I like that it makes you think. I'm really excited to see the new, I think we're still at 1,000-Year Blood War. I'm not allowed to search up much of it online to avoid spoilers, not reading anything. I think I like Bleach because I can sit here and talk to you about it, and probably will in the future too. We'll be talking about individual characters, and maybe we can go through my notes that I made. But yeah,